Okay, so we're going to talk about creating a new view in Tilos. So views can be Gantt charts, lists, but mainly we're talking about a time distance, time chainage view. We're going to create a new view by right mouse clicking in the Explorer on the Views section and choosing New View. So we give it a name and we choose what sort of view it is. We want an integrated view, but this is how you can create other views, other types of views. And there's a grouping character and a sorting character if you use that sorting and for the list on the left hand side. So we're using that. So I'm going to type that is time distance, and I want it to be the third in the list, and I'm going to open in the active window. So a view is made up of cells, and there are two cells here. That's important to understand at the beginning. There's the central cell here, slightly overshot there, but there's also this one around the outside. So there's like a border cell, and depending where you click, that's what you select. So click in the center, you get the heavy blue shadow here. The tabs are about this cell. If I click on the outside, the outside's got a heavy blue shadow as well, as it happens, and that is the outside cell. So we're going to click here, and we're going to make this a time distance cell, and we're going to choose the contents of a sub-project which is already obviously in the project. You might have more than one sub-project if you've got branch lines, side roads, that sort of thing, and we're going to choose one, or you could have more. And at this point, if we choose no, we can enter the distance values and the date range ourselves, but if we choose yes, we've already got tasks in the project, we can use the range of the project that's been set in Tools Options, and we can access that through the Tools Options. But here, if we just say OK, it scales the distance range and the time range to be what we want to, everything that we want to see. Everything's touching the edges. So now we can click on the main central cell again. On the display tab, we can turn off the green stripes, which are the weekends, and we can collapse those. We can use on the grids tab, we can use the grids that we've used in the past, so we could, that we created in the past are already in the library, just for speed here. And the other thing, we've really got to take the step back at this point and consider the size of the page. So I find the best way of doing that is reducing the zoom scale to something very small, like 25%, going into the print settings and choosing a page size that you actually want to print on, and displaying the page, the pagination on screen. So those blue dotted lines are the extent of an A3 page, and you can change the size of the cells physically with these teeth around the edge of the screen. So we can change that to make a narrow margin, and then we can stretch that out, but we want to have a title panel on the right hand side. So we can do that visually, but also if I right mouse click on the cell, on the view, and choose to edit it, and we know what we're doing, we can change the size of these to be half a centimeter in this particular case. So we can be very precise about things if we want to be. So we can do it visually, but also we can do it manually. So if we turn the pagination off, we return to 100%, so we can see what we're doing. So if we click in the outside cell, that border cell on the outside, and we need to do that so that when we insert a new row, it's added before any other cell in this view. So if we want to put it at the top, that's what we want to do. If we select a cell and insert another row, it will do it below the selected cell. So with this cell selected, we say we're going to use a cell wizard either on the tab below or on the menu item, and this is where we can choose what sort of data the cell contains, and whether we want to use an existing one or whether we're going to create a new one. So we're going to create a new one, which we're going to call KM and 250M. Okay, and this is an important idea. Where should the current cell get its distance values from you could enter them manually if you say none here, but if we choose this cell, it's going to pick up the distance value from the cell below. So this cell here will drive the distance values of the cell above. So in this cell, on the cell settings, they're grayed out. I can't change those because they've been inherited from this cell. So if we click back in the cell and choose the distance, define distance scales, there's one row here, and you can see the little tick marks. There's a 0 in the first one, and if we double click on that row, I'm going to put km in the label, the name that you can use in a legend, but we're going to set the frequency to 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer, and we're going to do the placement of that centered after the line. We're going to choose a 10-point font, and what we put in this cell is what we type in here. And if we insert a text token by using the F8 key, so that's a key message that you should know from creating text annotations. So if we press F8, we get a list of possible data types, and I'm going to choose just km. That gives me just a number. If I want to say anything else, I've got to put that in as a unit. So now it says 1, 2, 3, but it's got that km after it, and the row still describes it. And so let's just understand the text placement idea for a minute. I suppose you could argue that 1 kilometer starts exactly on that tick mark, but of course that gets in the way makes it slightly difficult to read. So some people prefer it to be just left justified, if you like, to that side, and I would say most people probably want it to be centered for neatness, really. And then we're going to insert another new row here. We're going to add another new row, which is going to be every 250 meters. So we want to change the interval value to 250. We want to reduce the font size, set the same location placement, and rotate it through 90 or 270 degrees. And what the bit of text is going to say, if we choose F8 and M for meters, we say OK, and I need to change the height of that as well, so I'm going to change that to 0.8. So you can see that we've got values, but at a certain point we don't have values, and there are 3 dots because we can't fit that piece of text into that area. So we've got a couple of options. We can increase the height of that row. We could change the font size to make it smaller, or we could increase the frequency. But in this case, I don't want to do that. I want to choose a different text field token. So if I go back to my row, delete that out, press F8 again, on this list we've got another option called M in KM. All of these can be defined in the Explorer project data distance axis definitions units. And if we choose that and say OK, it just showed us the elements that without the kilometerage section. So we've got to close that up ourselves to make it nice and neat. So now we're going to make a ruler on the left hand side. So I want a new cell on the left before the time distance cell. So I've got to click in the outside column and then choose to add a new column, and it'll be on the left hand side. So now I'm going to use this cell to add a new cell content to, and we're going to make a time ruler made up of various columns. So the first thing to do is to choose a cell wizard and say that this is a time cell, and we want to create some new content, and in this case it's going to be a time scale, and we're going to give a name to this result, and this will be stored in the library under project data time axis definitions. I'm going to call this 4 Ys, 3 Ms, 2 Ds, 2 Ws. So it's going to be a 4-digit year, a 3-digit month, 2-digit week commencing, and then the week number of the project. So that's just a sort of shorthand so I know what it is in the library. Again, we're going to pick up the time range from the cell on the right, and that's important because we're going to change that later on. So if I click on the cell now, we see that we've got 23, 24, 25, and that's the calendar week number, the week number that we find in our diaries. But we don't want that. First of all, we want to display the year. So every 1 year, and a 10-point font, I want to delete that, press F8, and from the time unit section, I'm going to scroll down and choose a 4-digit year. So if I rotate that as well, and we're going to see that that says 2017, then we get to 2018, that's the tick mark that defines the year. So now we're going to go back to our area down here. We're going to add a new row. So with this, it wants to be months. So we're going to delete the current entry, press F8, and from the months section, we're going to choose the one with 3 M's. So 1M would say, for January, that would say 1. 2 M's would say 01. 3 M's would say Jan. And 4 M's would say January. So we want a sort of short month name every month, which is going to be also rotated, and it's also going to be 10-point font. So when we go back to the plan, we can see that information. We're going to add another one, which is going to be week commencing. So we want to display the day of the week, that every week. So we're going to press F8, and we're going to choose day with a double D. So the first will be 01, and the frequency is going to be every week, and the 0 point is going to be any Monday. So it's going to be the start of the week commencing a Monday. So some people have week ending Sundays, and you can do all that by changing the date to any day of the week that you want. So we possibly don't want to rotate this, but we do want a font. So that's looking good. And now we want a week number, and not a week number we find in our diary, but a project week number. So if we say plus now to add another new row, so this is week number, that's just a label. You'll see where that goes in a minute. We're going to press F8, and calendar week would be the one we find in our diaries that restarts after 52. But if we scroll down here, we've got one called week relative, and that is project starts at week number 1 and goes on forever. There might even be week minus, where we've got some procurement pre-construction activities, but we're going to choose that again every week, and we're going to say that that starts on the 5th of June. So week 1 is the 5th of June. Anything before that will be negative. So we'll change that a little bit later, and you'll see that go negative. Again, we're going to choose a 10-point font, not rotate it. So we've got a really good looking ruler, and we could repeat these that we've done on the right hand side or the bottom, and we could copy the ones that are in the library, and we could reuse those and move the lines around without having to create it. So we've done the basics in that particular case, and now what we want to do is we want to change the range of this cell. And this is now important because these other cells, we've said that they've got a master cell. So this has got a time master cell. So if I change this cell, this will also change in step. So let's do that. So we're going to say it's we just want a week before that. So we have got a week in there, and we can see it now says -1. So week -1. We've got a bit of a holiday showing, but we're going to set the end date of this to be the 5th of September 2017. So that's 3 months after the first activity. And because the lines are touching the edge, because it's starting at 0, I'm going to say -100, just to give us a bit of margin on the right hand side, and ditto on the the left hand side, and ditto on the right hand side. So our view now terminates in the first week of September. So we've just sliced out something that we want. We could have done the same thing with distance. So just to finish this view off, I want to think about some graphical items. And so in the border area, the white cell that surrounds everything, I also need to use a cell wizard to make that a graphic cell and create some new content that I'm going to just call A3L border. And again, that goes in the library under graphic project data graphic libraries. So if I click on here now, we can do things that you've done before, but just to remind you, to insert a logo, we click on this item. We want to connect it to the top right hand corner with no with scaling in both directions. We draw a box, we go away and find a graphic that is on our computer somewhere, and we could set no scaling for that example and keep the proportions, and so that would move around with it. And the connecting it to the top right hand corner is, were we to change our mind, it would always be connected to that side, as opposed to if it was the top left hand corner and we did that, then we might clip out parts of it. So always good to keep that setting available. In the same way, in the bottom right hand corner we could embed a bit of a spreadsheet in the way we've done before. So again, we click on insert graphic object, we want to scale it but to the bottom right. I'm going to draw a box there, and we're going to choose an OLE object, and we already know it exists, so we're going to browse to find it. I choose the one called title details, and okay, so it's going to open Excel in the background and display that in the cell here. If we double click on any of the blue editing handles or on the OLE tab, we click on open, it's going to open that in Excel, and I can say that this is the A44 dual carriageway. The client is the Highways Agency, the contractor is Elite. The reference is 002. It's just etc. So when we save that, it's going to update the plan. So we've got to be slightly careful about the physical size of that. We said, what's the original size? It's pretty big, so it is being scaled down, so you might want to maybe edit the spreadsheet in the way. But the other final thing we want to do is insert a legend to show what these different colors and patterns mean. The task templates that we've got in the library and that are driving where the shapes are coming from, and the line style, so we can reduce the amount of descriptive text. So for that we use the fourth button up in the central toolbar, insert a task legend. Again, we're going to connect that to the top right, and then I'm going to draw a box, and it's a grid really, because there's a series of items, and we can set on the tabs below how many columns it has. So we might want several columns if you were having it along the bottom, and how much text is taken up as opposed to pictures, and what font size will be used. And then we can also choose the entries that are going to go in here. So we can do it, we can add our own manually, but I find the best way to do it is through this generate legend entries from task button. So here we can say, we can choose all the sub-projects visible on the current view, and we do need to set this item, set text from the task template. So then we get all the items that are in the view that we've got. We might not like the order in that table, so we can choose to move them up and down, and we can put a sort order in here, and we can sort automatically. So you've got many choices in that regard. No one really knows that it's the legend or a key, so we need to put a bit of text associated with that. And again, we're going to just draw a text box in that cell. We're going to not make it a manual size, and we're going to say the word legend in caps. So and we might make it bigger, and then we can just locate that where we want, and we finished our view. We can save that, and then we can reduce the scale just so you can see the sort of full range of it. So we've created that view that didn't exist before. We can go back to another view by double clicking here. So this is the whole project from the beginning to the end, no legend. And if we double click on that, and whatever you see on screen is what you're going to get when you print it out. So if on the display tab we want to see our logic links, then we can. If we don't, we can turn them off. So now you can print it, go to the print dialog, print to one page, check your printer, this is the one you want, check the page size, click on print, job done. Thank you for listening. Enjoy creating your views, they're very powerful.